Welcome to the Know, I'm Ashley. Despite all odds, Kingdom Hearts 3 is still slated for release sometime in 2018, at long last. But at the moment, we don't have any more definitive answer than, well, the year. However, there is just the slightest chance that Target might have spilled the beans. The retailer just posted a listing for Kingdom Hearts 3 with a release date of November 1. As always with retailer dates, there is a total chance this is just a placeholder, although we have seen recently with both God of War and the Spyro Reignited trilogy, sometimes that's not the case and they're not just placeholders. November 1, if you're wondering, is a Thursday, not the typical release day of Tuesday or Friday, so that calls it into question. But it's not like Kingdom Hearts has ever done something that doesn't make sense before, right? This would be the most sensible thing they've done. It's been a blowout of Spider-Man information over the past week or so, and details of the game just keep on coming. Game Informer's exclusive coverage of Insomniac's web-slinging adventure continues, and now the developers are talking more about the wall crawler's gadgets and the game's side quests. According to Insomniac, Spider-Man will have access to a web tripwire, which when triggered it pulls the target toward whatever it's attached to, including another enemy, which is fun, the web bomb, which explodes and slows enemies down, and the spider drone, which can serve as a distraction tool or shooting out webs to tangle up enemies, maybe around their ankles. Yeah, get 'em, little drone. There'll be some other gadgets, of course, but those are just a handful of the ones Insomniac is discussing right now. In terms of side quests, Insomniac doesn't want to give too much away, but it sounds like you'll be receiving tasks from Harry Osborn, tracking Wilson Fisk spaces, stopping robberies, snooping with Black Cat. From the sounds of it, there is going to be a lot to do in Spider-Man, and a lot of secrets too, which makes sense, especially if the world is as big as they're saying, which it probably is since that's what they're saying. Just when you thought ransomware couldn't get any weirder or more invasive, because look, we've had some really weird stuff in the past, now there's a new version of it that forces you to play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. It's exactly what it sounds like. Called PUBG ransomware, the malware restricts access to any files on your computer until you throw down in PUBG and try to get yourself a chicken dinner. Bleeping Computer reports that while PUBG ransomware may prompt you to play the game for an hour before it decrypts your shit, you actually only need to run the game for like 3 seconds to trick it into giving you access back. So it's not that bad as long as you have the game. Either way, the whole thing really is bizarre and it's kicking that whole Battle Royale rivalry to a new level of ridiculousness. And some fans get a little overboard, maybe. There have been concerns that not so great sales of Bethesda's Prey unfortunately might mean the end of the franchise, but the publisher says things aren't so dire for the sci-fi horror game just yet. In fact, Bethesda Vice President of Marketing Pete Hines discussed some of those rumors going around that some DLC could be on the way for Prey very soon. When news outlet DualShockers asked about Prey's recent DLC rumors at PAX East over the weekend, Hines said, "As with a lot of stuff, we're not a massive publisher that just churns out a ton of titles. We never have been. We really stick with our stuff after it launches, as we have with Prey." He went on to say, "I don't think you've heard the last of Prey, I just couldn't tell you precisely when you might hear more." Well, judging by some of the teasing the company's been doing on social media, it sounds like that when could very possibly most likely be the Bethesda E3 showcase on June 10th. So we'll see. A massive loot box fine was just dished out by the Korean FTC, with the organization slapping 3 South Korean companies on the wrist due to their handling of microtransactions. In total, Nextfloor, Netmarble, and Nexon were hit with the equivalent of $945,000 in fine, with Nexon receiving the brunt of it at around $875,000. Most of the fine was due to how the loot boxes were advertised and how their odds were published for their respective games. And that they weren't really true. In Nexon's case, players were trying to collect 16 unique items, only available via loot boxes for a special event in the game's Sudden Attack. However, Nexon wasn't totally upfront about the odds for some of these pieces, which could be as low as 0.5%. One player reportedly spent more than $350 trying to get them all. So, now we can add all of this to the growing list of government organizations who are catching on to the shady loot box dealings, and we'll see if this sets a precedent for the future. Lawbreakers developer Boss Key Productions made some headlines yesterday when they announced that their brand new Battle Royale title, Radical Heights, is already hitting extreme early access, and within just 24 hours, well, they're already getting some flack about the game's economy. Players have criticized the game's Founders Pack, claiming that it offers pay-to-win bonuses. Well, that's because of one of the game's mechanics. Every player has an offshore bank account where they can pull money to buy weapons early when the match starts, or just, find weapons on their own, scavenge. The Founders Pack pack, when announced, originally came with $10,000 for your offshore account, plus a 10% cash earned bonus for every match. And considering having more in-game money means you can constantly buy better weapons more quickly than players who don't have it, it was, well, sort of fairly called pay to win. As a result, Bosky has removed both bonuses from the Founders Pack, writing on Twitter, "We're listening to your feedback and we don't want anything that resembles pay to win in the game." Well, that was certainly fast and not desperate at all, but totally radical. Radical Heights drops in extreme early access today if you want to check it out. Toy Story 4 finally has an official release date. I'm so excited for this one, you guys. Pixar announced yesterday that the long-in-development follow-up to the series that started it all for the studio will be out next summer, June 21st, 2019. It doesn't take a math wizard to figure out that it's been a long time since the last film. Too long, really. Toy Story 3 released all the way back in 2010. It's weird because it doesn't feel like it's been 8 years. I feel like I watched it so much more recently in the theater, crying, and there's a kid next to me also crying, and I'm like, I feel like a kid. But I guess it was 8 years ago. Toy Story 4 has had some bumpy development problems since it was first announced in 2014 for a 2017 date, which obviously got postponed. A lot of that had to do with creative lead musical chairs that John Lasseter was set to direct until he stepped off the project in 2017. Writers Rashida Jones and Will McCormick revealed they'd left the project too, following accusations of sexual harassment against Lasseter. They said it was mostly due to creative differences, but now the film is being helmed by Josh Cooley from Inside Out and Jonas Rivera of Coco, both of which were great films and very interesting, and they were a slightly different direction for Pixar, so curious to see what they're doing with Toy Story. Whatever you do, guys, please do it good. If you thought season 1 of Westworld was full of twists and turns, wait until you hear about the troll that the producers and HBO just pulled on the entire internet. This week, the showrunners announced on a Reddit AMA that in order to get ahead of spoiler culture, they were going to purposefully spoil the entire season of Westworld. It's like all ahead of time. The idea, or so they claimed, was so people could help protect others from the real spoilers, the same way they did for Game of Thrones, with the books out years ahead of the show and filled with momentous events that managed to go largely unspoiled for viewers. Largely. However, when the time came to release this spoiler-filled video, oh man, they just trolled everyone. The first couple minutes of the season 2 spoiler video seemed legit until, basically until Dolores starts singing Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, and Rick rolled everyone. Once that rendition's over, the next 20 minutes are just a dog sitting in front of a piano while the Westworld soundtrack plays, so suck it, spoiler fiends, I guess. If you want to see the real spoilers for the show, you're not gonna have long to wait because season 2 debuts on April 22nd on HBO. I feel like I need to watch season 1 again. There was so much that happened. Oregon's just passed a law that would preserve net neutrality in the state despite recent motions by the FCC to dismantle net neutrality protections. The bill, which would block ISPs from throttling traffic, was signed by Oregon Governor Kate Brown, joining Washington as the second state to do so. The Oregon law is a little bit less strict than the one in Washington, which puts all these new restrictions on all ISPs, whereas the Oregon law only makes it applicable to ISPs selling internet services to state agencies, which is kind of a big difference. Ars Technica writes that a lot of that is because Oregon doesn't want to face lawsuits from ISPs for going against the FCC, but that'll probably still happen anyway, since lobbying groups are promising they're going to do just that. We'll have to see if more states jump on board this ongoing battle over net neutrality. We're seeing a lot of local districts, local cities potentially wanting to build their own internet infrastructure so they don't have to deal with ISPs at all. So, interesting times. But that does it for this roundup. That's all the news for you today. Let us know what you think of these updates in the comments down below. And to make sure you get news from every corner of the internet every day, like this video. If you're new to this channel, subscribe to the know, then you can also get the news. Tracking Wilson Fisk's bases, stopping robberies, snooping with, 2019. Doesn't take a math wizard to figure out that it's been at least It doesn't take a math wizard to figure out it's been a long time since the past film. What's wrong with me?